Today we're talking about Walmart's APDP. Sadly, we're not in Vietnam or Scotland, but we're happy to be here in Northwest Arkansas talking to you guys about Walmart's disputing portal. Today we have leading our content, Stacy. She is our SVP of Retail Insights. If you have questions about Walmart, she's your gal. I'm excited to hear the content that she's got for us today. And then I will be serving up questions that come in the chat to Stacy. My name's Allie Trong. I manage the content on the Supplier Wiki side. So if you've read an article, downloaded an ebook, or even the webinar that you're on, that's what my team works on. So excited to have you here today. And then we've got a packed agenda this afternoon. Thank you again for joining us. We're going to be talking about what Walmart's APDP or Accounts Payable Dispute Portal is, how you access APDP to dispute your deductions, and then we're going to talk about how you dispute those claims as well as invoices and decoding what those dispute statuses mean so you can better respond to your deduction claims. And then we'll end with a Q&A with Stacy and myself. So stay tuned and send your questions in as soon as you have them, because we'll tee those up. All right, and then a couple FAQs that we get on any webinar is, will you get a copy of today's slide deck? Yes, at any webinar you attend, we're going to send you the slide deck afterwards, as well as a video recording, and that should hit your inbox in about 3 to 4 business days. And then our second FAQ is, what is the best way to ask a question? So if you ask a question, I will be looking at the chat and the Q&A. I'm always going to prioritize the Q&A first. That is the tab on Zoom that has 2 speech bubbles. But if you share anything in the chat, that's helpful for everyone here, myself, Stacy, and any attendees to view. So if you have helpful information to share to help your fellow suppliers, please share that in the chat. And then lastly, who are we? We're SupplyPike. If you're new to a webinar, we're glad to have you. We create software that helps CPGs reduce revenue loss. We do that in a couple different ways at different retailers. Today, we're talking about Walmart, but we also have solutions in Amazon, Kroger, Target, and we just launched Home Depot, and we're expanding to other retailers this year, which is super exciting. Last thing I'll say here is that we work with a ton of CPGs like yourself. We probably have someone that's in your category or similar to you, and we help them reduce revenue loss. And we've gotten up to, over the last couple of years, $680 million that we have saved for some of these retailers. So if you don't see your logo up here today, we hope that you join the fold and we can help reduce some of that revenue loss that you're experiencing at retailers. And with that, I'll hand it over to Stacy to get into today's content.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Allie. Super excited to talk about the wonderful world of retailer deductions. I know it's, for some of you guys, if you're on the finance team, it's probably something you have the pleasure of dealing with every day. But if you guys are maybe newer to the space or maybe aren't in finance, this may be a whole new world for you. So I would say this is definitely one of our kind of more beginners course. Of course, it's in the name, APDP 101. But, as Allie mentioned, we have a ton of other content that is available, like 201 type stuff on Supplier Wiki. So hopefully this is a nice foundational course. And again, if you guys need anything beyond that, we have a ton of free resources on supplierwiki.com. So we are going to go ahead and get started by talking about what APDP is. So for those of you guys who have been in the finance world for a while with regards to Walmart, you may be familiar with direct commerce. That was an old website that Walmart utilized anytime you got a deduction and wanted to dispute that. So Walmart used to outsource this to a company called Direct Commerce. They have since sunset that site and have now introduced their own portal called APDP. So this is a purely Walmart kind of homegrown solution. It's available in Retail Link, and we will talk about today how to access it, what it looks like, how to submit claims, how to track claims, and basically make sure that you are getting all of the money that you should be getting back done correctly. So just wanted to call out a couple of differences, again, for those of you guys who have maybe used direct commerce in the past. Maybe you used to sell to Walmart a long time ago and now you're back, calling it out. So again, direct commerce was a third-party application. You did have to key in all of your disputes from scratch. So basically, anytime you got a deduction from Walmart and you're like, I disagree, you should pay me in full for that, you literally had to create a brand new form for that. You had one dispute per deduction, and then you would get an overall approved or denied status for a deduction. For APDP, as I mentioned, it is Walmart built. It is located in Retail Link. Disputes are tied to claims and invoices, so there's a little bit more automation for you. There's one dispute per claim line, which means you can also have multiple statuses per deduction. So if, for example, you get, two different codes on a specific claim, like a code 22 and a code 24, you can dispute those separately and get judgments back for those separately. So on one hand, the nice part is there's a little bit more granularity and nuance with APDP. On the other side of that, it basically just kind of explodes into like a whole bunch of new statuses that you have to keep track of that maybe you didn't have to before. So pros and cons to everything. I would say, generally speaking, as someone that was familiar with direct commerce, APDP is definitely a step in the right direction. And again, we'll call out kind of how to use it and some things to just be aware of. So a couple of things did not change from the shift from direct commerce to APDP. And one of them is that Genpact is still reviewing disputes. So Genpact is actually a third-party company that Walmart contracts with to actually review any of the disputes that you submit and basically make judgment calls on them. So a lot of folks, maybe you're not aware of that. Again, if you're newer to the space and you go, oh, I sent it to Walmart and Walmart is taking a look at it, they've actually outsourced that to a third party. I think one thing to keep in mind there, kind of interesting, again, if you're newer to this world, a lot of times suppliers may not feel super comfortable with sending in deduction disputes because they'll go, oh, I don't want to make my buyer mad, or I don't want to, be a bee in their bonnet. Like I want to try and like rock the boat as little as possible. The Walmart buyer has no idea of any of those situations. Again, it is being completely outsourced to a separate third-party company. One other thing that did not change, which is nice, is that the dispute review times appear to be about similar. There was a little bit of change in how Walmart accepted deduction disputes around something called the settlement program, which I'll be talking about in a little bit. But things seem to have kind of settled down a little. And so I would say for the most part, we're seeing dispute review times of about 60 to 75 days for any of the deductions or claims that you submit. And then the last thing that I wanted to call out is that generally speaking, you need the same types of proof documentation for APDP as you did for direct commerce. So for example, if you have a shortage related code, you still need to send in a BOL if you're a collect supplier or a POD if you're a prepaid supplier, so on and so forth. So hopefully just helpful kind of guiding points as you guys navigate utilizing APDP. So I think, it's direct commerce has been sunset for a while. So hopefully this shouldn't impact too many of you guys. But for those of you who are in the know, Walmart does have about a 2-year kind of statute of limitations, so to speak, on how long you can actually dispute a claim. So when they did make the shift from direct commerce to APDP, historical dispute data was not migrated to the new system. And kind of what that looked like in the beginning was there were claims in APDP that looked like they could be disputed because, the historical information was not pulled in, even though they had already been disputed in direct commerce. I will say, by and large, if you are a new supplier to Walmart, this should not be an issue for you at all. All claims should be flowing through APDP, and you should be good to go on this. We just like to call it out again if we have some folks that have been kind of in the Walmart world for a minute. So yeah, I did mention Walmart retiring settlement disputing. So this was kind of the hot button topic of 2023. And we really wanted to kind of call that out for a couple of folks because essentially Walmart used to have a program called Settlement where they would allow usually mid-size and larger suppliers to dispute deductions utilizing bulk disputing on a quarterly basis. So essentially what what they would say is like, hey, you guys got a bunch of deductions. Rather than us having to review each one and you having to submit each one, why don't you just submit, kind of all of the things that you think are incorrect for, let's say, this past quarter. We'll sample some of the deductions and we'll make a judgment call and we'll say, hey, yes, we do agree. We should pay you 60% of what you're asking for. And then suppliers could negotiate and basically say, no, we want, 90%. And maybe you would agree somewhere at 75 to 80%. So this has now officially been retired. Now, as with Walmart, there are always kind of asterisks to everything. The program itself is officially retired. They aren't allowing any new suppliers to do the settlement program. But we have seen and we have heard, again, larger suppliers, as you can imagine, after they retired the program and all the suppliers had to start submitting disputes individually, Walmart's backlog or Genpact's backlog just, kind of grew disproportionately large, and they weren't able to get to claims as quickly as they used to. And so what they did was, for a select number of suppliers, they did offer kind of these like mini settlements to try and help clear that backlog. So again, we've seen some suppliers get offered it. Walmart has said that it's supposed to be a one-time settlement. In some very, very rare cases, we've seen two-time settlements. But generally speaking, they're really trying to kind of keep that for the larger, again, mid-sized suppliers. If you are a smaller supplier, I would say, kind of under 100 million-ish, you probably were not part of settlement, and you probably will not be invited to be part of settlement just because you don't have enough claims to really clog up their backlog. So along with that, and I'm giving you guys a lot of Walmart deduction lore. Again, this is a little bit more 101, so hopefully this is helpful context and background. But when they retired settlement, Walmart did require that suppliers utilize, or not require, but they recommended that suppliers utilize something called MDC, or mass dispute. And essentially that was supposed to be Walmart's kind of, solution for taking away settlement. They basically said, hey, you can use this MDC process. It allows you to submit 500 claims at once. But what they failed to also share is that when you use the MDC process, so yes, you can bulk submit 500 claims at once, but you cannot attach any proof documentation with those 500 claims. And again, as I kind of mentioned earlier, for Walmart, if you don't have proof, essentially it gets very, very difficult to win any disputes. So we actually found that suppliers utilizing the MDC process actually have a win rate of only 8%. So that is, not great. Suppliers that were on settlement before were usually getting anywhere between, I would say, 75 to 90% returns. And that drop to 8% was pretty significant. And that is still true till today. So we recommend our suppliers, even though MDC exists, to me, so just so you guys know, again, more context for those of you that are new to the space, Walmart only allows you to dispute a deduction 3 times. After that, they basically kind of cancel it out and say, hey, you weren't able to prove your case. We're not going to pay you for this. So for us, if the MDC, already has a 92% failure rate, we really recommend, don't burn your first match when there's a 92% chance that it won't work. So we always recommend that our suppliers utilize individual disputing so that you can, include your proof documentation, basically try and get it right the first time so that you are not having to go back and redo your work or losing one opportunity to try and get that money back. So yeah, just wanted to touch on that a little bit and make sure that you guys were aware of kind of this most recent update. Okay, cool. So I wanted to then kind of pivot to talking about how you actually get APDP. So if you guys are following along at home or at the office and are curious, essentially all you should need to do is log into Retail Link and in the apps section of Retail Link, you should be able to see, you can search, of course, for APDP, and you should be able to find that here. So this is, just so you guys know, again, this is an internal Walmart application. So with direct commerce, you used to have to go to a separate site and you had a completely separate login. With Retail Link and APDP, you don't have to do that. So essentially, if you have access to Retail Link and you can see APDP, you should be able to just click on the application and get access. If you are in Retail Link and you don't see it right now, you can reach out to your Retail Link admin. Essentially, they are the ones that are able to grant permissions on which applications you are able to see. So you should be able to just say, hey, I need access to APDP because I am in finance and I will be disputing deductions, and they should be able to get you sorted there. And if for some reason your admin does not have access to APDP, that is something that I would then escalate to the Retail Link help desk. You can call 479-273-8888. Yes, that is tattooed in my brain forever. Or you can utilize the help button and submit basically a self-service ticket, and they should be able to grant you access. So again, this is your company's financial data, so there really isn't a reason why you shouldn't be able to have access to it, as long as you ask for it. And then one other quick pro tip for you guys too, and this applies to any of the Retail Link applications. When you're on the apps page, if you see this star icon on the tile, if you click on that star icon, you will favorite the application. And then when you log into Retail Link on the home page, you will automatically see your favorited apps there. So if you are in the finance world, I would really recommend actually kind of APDP, APIS, which is Accounts Payable Inquiry System, as well as the Accounting Scorecard. Those are 3 really great basic applications that you should have to really get a handle of your finances as it regards to Walmart. Okay, so as I kind of mentioned earlier, just to give you guys an understanding of the infrastructure of how APDP works. So as I mentioned before, DCI, Direct Commerce, required you had to type in all of the dispute information from scratch. So essentially you would go to DCI, you'd create new and essentially kind of fill out an entire form and then submit that. With APDP, they've tried to help streamline some of that because I can imagine, a lot of hand keying errors, I'm sure, with DCI and people creating, disputes on claims that don't exist accidentally. For APDP, they actually require you to look up a claim or an invoice first and then create a dispute from that record. And if you are curious again to see where these claims and invoices are, I don't think we have it on this webinar, but that would be on the APIS or Accounts Payable Inquiry System app. There you can see everything that you've invoiced, everything that you've gotten paid on, and then all of the claims. So basically any of the deductions that Walmart has issued to you. And essentially it kind of looks like this. As you can see here, you would select your vendor number, figure out what you want to create your dispute based on, enter that claim number, and then kind of search from there. So claim line level disputes, as I mentioned earlier, before Walmart expected a single dispute for each grouping of like claim lines within a claim. So you would essentially kind of submit all of the code 22s at once using DCI. With APDP, you can now create an individual dispute for every claim line that you can dispute. So for example, if you had one PO with multiple line numbers, so you had maybe 2 different item numbers or different DCs or whatever it is, again, you would just submit that all as one. In APDP, you will actually submit individual claim line numbers. So if you have one PO with 4 lines on it, you can submit 4 separate disputes, essentially. And I kind of mentioned this before. Again, one of the pros, of course, is that you can have a lot of nuance with your disputes. So let's just say, for example, you go, hey, I know that this was actually valid. I really did short ship on this particular item. That was my bad. I don't want to dispute this, but I know for sure that this is incorrect. I shipped this particular line in full. I definitely for sure want to dispute this. So you can say, hey, I'm not going to submit, a dispute for claim line 1, but I will for 2, 3, and 4. So again, the nice thing is that a little bit of nuance there. You aren't having to do work that, on valid claims that you're not going to get any money back on. But the bottom line for that kind of flip side of the coin is that you can get multiple dispute statuses within a single claim or deduction. So let's say you do provide a dispute for claim lines 2, 3, and 4. Walmart can say, 2 is approved, 3 is supplier action, and 4 is denied. And it's kind of up to you to make sure that you are tying that back and reconciling that back with your own ERPs and cash apps. So again, nice thing is a little bit of nuance can save you a bit of work on the front end. The challenging part is, before it would have been like 1 dispute to submit. Now it's 3 that you need to track. So just things to think about. So pivoting to talking about how you actually dispute a claim. So, and I realize I should probably back up a little bit and talk about kind of what a claim is. So when we are talking about claims in this particular world, we are referring to AP deductions. And essentially what that means is that you have invoiced Walmart for an order, and Walmart has decided to short pay you on that order. And there are, a lot of different reasons. I think there are over 75 different codes that Walmart can utilize to short pay you. But essentially, Walmart is saying a really common example is a shortage. So Walmart orders 100 cases from you, you ship them 100 cases. Walmart says we only received 80 cases, either it got lost or it got damaged or whatever it is. If you can prove to them like, no, I have this proof of delivery or this bill of lading saying I shipped 100, you can file a claim essentially or a dispute with Walmart to say, hey, you need to pay me back in full. And this is kind of where this process comes in to play. So APIS is where you can see that you have claims, and we'll show you kind of what that looks like in a second. And APDP is the system that you actually go into to then submit the dispute. So just wanted to, again, give you guys a little bit of that context and background so you know when to start looking at these applications. So disputing a claim, as I mentioned, essentially this is a deduction that you've received from Walmart. So you can create a dispute from a claim if there's a claim record in APIS. So you can see this is obviously just demo data here, but essentially this particular supplier received a claim with 3 lines on it, 2 code 22s, which are merchandise billed not shipped. So that is basically a shortage issue. And a code 57, which is a quantity discount. This is usually going to be tied to your supplier agreement allowances. So, in the world of AP deductions, these can be valid or invalid. And essentially what that means is, maybe you, as I in a previous example mentioned, maybe you really did short ship. Walmart asked you for 100 cases, but for whatever reason, you only had 90 cases available. So you shipped the 90. So they're not going to pay you for those 10 cases. So in that case, it is a completely valid claim. Then there's really kind of nothing else to do other than to close it out on your end, write that off and say, yes, that is a valid claim. If it is invalid, if you have proof where you can say, no, on PO 12345678990, again, I have my shipping proof. These are not valid. We should ship it in full. That is your trigger to then say, okay, I'm going to go into APDP and actually dispute this claim. So just again, more context, how often you should be checking in APIS really depends on the size of your business. Obviously, if you are larger, we have folks that are literally in APIS and APDP every single day. Like they have entire teams that are dedicated to finding claims and disputing them. I would say at a bare minimum, you want to try and get into APIS once a week if you're on the finance side, just because you want to make sure that you're getting your payments on time, that claims aren't being deducted incorrectly, you're not getting incorrect allowances taken, and just making sure you have a finger on the pulse of your business. So weekly, bi-weekly is kind of stretching it a little bit. Again, if you're on the finance side, if you're on the sales side, probably don't need to be in there as much. But if you're responsible for payments and things like that, I would say weekly is kind of a decent cadence to be in. So again, once you guys have identified claims that you're like, hey, this isn't right, I need to go and fight this, you want to then go back to APDP. And at the top of the app, you'll see in the top right corner, there is going to be a Create Dispute button. From there, you will select the 6-digit vendor number that is relevant to the claim from the dropdown. So there are, again, if you're a larger supplier, you may have multiple vendor numbers. If you guys are smaller, again, new to the Walmart world, you probably only have one vendor number, makes it pretty easy for you guys. But essentially select the right vendor number, create the dispute based on the claim. And then you want to fill in, either you can fill in the claim number itself if you have that available, so you can pull it straight from here, or you can select a date range. So for some folks, they like to try and rather than go claim by claim by claim, they want to work a date range of claims, and you can kind of, create disputes directly out of APDP. You can do that too. Now, one thing I will call out that not a lot of people know is that you can only select a date range of 10 days or fewer. So when you are working in batches, and this kind of goes back to that 7-day cadence that I mentioned, you can only work in batches of 10 days. Now, obviously, if you're not getting a ton, it's not the biggest deal. But as you can imagine, if you are working, if you're sending to 40 DCs and getting hit with 40 POs or 40 deductions a week, that kind of gets crazy really, really quickly. So after you've put in the claim number and or the date ranges, you're going to hit the search button, and then you should see a list of claims that match the criteria that you entered. So either it'll have the exact claim number that you've entered, or, kind of just in our example, you can see here we did basically a date range, and you'll see all of the claims or invoice numbers that fall under this particular claim date range. From there, you can kind of see whichever claim amount you want to go after, and then you'll hit the Create Dispute button to say, okay, I'm ready to go fight this, and I need to go get my money back. Okay, so from there, I think one thing that a lot of folks miss, because it's not super obvious, is that you do need to actually select the individual lines that you want to dispute, as I kind of mentioned in that earlier example. So you can say again, hey, I want to do 1 and 2, but this quantity discount is valid, so I'm not going to fight that, or something like that. And essentially what you want to do from there is you'll need to basically fill out any of the kind of blank fields that you see. So, the nice thing too about APDP is you can also do partial disputes if you want to. So let's just say this one, they're hitting you with a 2-item quantity deduction, but maybe that you only shorted 1, you can update that to 1. If you want to. I will say, by and large, most suppliers tend to just dispute the whole thing, just because Walmart can partially approve deductions. So it really depends on kind of how, what your workload is and what your SOP looks like at your company. Some folks like to, again, be very, very precise, and they go, hey, we shorted 1, we're going to update that to 1 so that everything matches and the paperwork is, chef's kiss. We also have some folks that are like, hey, I don't have time for that. I'm going to try and just dispute as much as I can, and basically put the research back on Walmart for them to partially approve, deny, or fully approve whatever it is you submit. So kind of up to you. You'll need to pick your, freight method, ship method, load number, dispute amount, and you also need to add a description, which is mandatory in order for you to create a dispute. And the description, just so you guys know, it doesn't have to be a novel. You guys don't have to write 14 paragraphs about why you should get paid. Again, I'm using the shortage example. You can literally say, shipped in full, POD attached, please repay. And that is sufficient. So again, don't worry about chat GPTing it. By and large, we have found usually kind of the first shot across the bow for disputes that you send to Genpact, they aren't even reading the description. They're going to look at the proof documentation first, and then again, approve it or deny it. And then if they deny it or ask for more information and you come back and put in more information, then they'll read that description kind of more thoroughly. So you do need to put something there, but again, you don't need to put a lot of paragraphs, just POD attached, we shipped in full, please repay. I would also do a friendly reminder that you do need to hit the add button after you have typed in the description. Again, something that trips a lot of people up, because if not, if you try and hit the dispute all without adding the add, it will delete all your comments and then you'll be very sad and you have to start again. So, again, make sure that you are selecting the checkboxes, adding a description, hitting that add button, and then you can start working on attaching proof and things like that. So, as I mentioned, and again, if you're newer to the space, I really, really want to stress this very, very heavily. Proof documentation is key for you to get paid back on any deduction disputes that you are submitting. You can try, like in the mass dispute creation system, to just submit things and see what sticks. But again, as we mentioned, 8% win rate and you burn a match. So I would say wherever you can, try and get it right the first time as much as you can. So I won't go too far into it today, but just so you guys know, we do have a resource available for free on Supplier Wiki, where we show you every code that Walmart has and we also tell you what type of proof documentation you need to fight every code. So for example, I kind of mentioned the shortages. Your silver bullet for this is going to be, if you are shipping prepaid, it's going to be a proof of delivery. If you're shipping collect, it's going to be a bill of lading. You can submit packing lists, you can submit ASN reports, you can submit DSS reports or Luminate soon. Honestly, none of that really matters. I think it's great supporting documentation, but at the end of the day, for codes like 22, 24, 25, if you don't have the POD or bill of lading, it's not going to go anywhere. So really, really important to understand early kind of what documentation is required for what type of claim, again, so that when you are submitting it over the first time, you aren't burning a match. Everything is in order and it's ready to go for the Genpact team to review and hopefully approve. So as far as the type of file formats that are acceptable for documentation, we just wanted to call that out here, but you should be able to see it when you are doing your own disputes. So, very standard PDFs, JPEGs, Word documents, so on and so forth. You'll see things like email, message. So sometimes there will be things like a return situation where your buyer has stated that they, are allowing you to dispute this for whatever reason. Then you definitely want to include, proof of email from your buyer so that the Genpact team has that available, etc. So after you have added all of the dispute information and the documentation, then you're going to hit next at the bottom of the page to kind of move it forward. Just so you guys know, after you click the next button, you can still go back and edit the claim by clicking on the previous button. You can also click the save button to create a draft of the dispute and then return to it at a later time. One thing I very, very much want to call out is that draft disputes are saved for 14 days. If you do not submit the dispute after that time, the system will cancel the dispute. I like to call this out because what we see happen a lot for kind of SOPs for suppliers is it takes a while to get your proof documentation, let's say from your warehouse, to scan all the BOLs that were sent out, last month or whatever it is. And so what happens is some suppliers, when they're starting out, they'll go, great, I'm just going to go and create everything because I know I shipped everything in full and I'll just wait. And then once my warehouse sends me those BOLs, I'll just attach them and we'll be good to go. And again, they come in after the 14 days are done and all of their drafts are gone. So please don't do that. You can work ahead up to 2 weeks, but beyond that, you will be very sad. So just wanted to call that out. Draft disputes are available for 14 days. So I would say kind of work on them as documentation becomes available and not vice versa. If time is precious, this is kind of the level of priority that I would recommend. So yeah, after you have submitted all of your, again, information as well as the proof documentation, essentially after that, you hit the submit button and that will kick this off to the Genpact team for review. You'll have a pop-up window that will show you the dispute case numbers and the dispute numbers. I will talk a little bit about why it's important to get the case right the first time in a second. But, just to give you guys a hint, once you have hit the submit button, you cannot edit a claim until until Walmart either cancels it, denies it, or sends it back to you for additional information. So that is something to be aware of. It's not like you can submit it and then later on add documentation. That concept doesn't exist in APDP. So just be aware that, again, when you're hitting submit, you want all your ducks to be in a row the first time. Okay, so talking about disputing invoices. Oh, yes, Allie.
Hey, Stacey, sorry, we've got a couple questions and you're hitting on some of those, so I wanted to bring them up. Teresa was asking, on a single package shipment, each package contains several cases. The tracking will only show one package was delivered. What's the best way to dispute those charges?
So it sounds like they're master packing, and that is a little bit dangerous when you're master packing, because essentially, to your point, if you have like 12 cases in one master case, the Walmart DC is going to go like, sweet, I got one case. And that's all they're going to give you credit for. So I would recommend not master packing. And if I'm misinterpreting the question, definitely please let me know, Teresa, as well. But if you guys are kind of newer and doing master packing, so, let's say DC 6060 orders 12 cases and you put it in one big box, like I would recommend not doing that anymore. You need to send those 12 individual cases so that they can get scanned in individually and you can get credit for that. That would be my recommendation. And another issue with master packing, again, if that's what's happening, and apologize if it's not, but if that's what's happening, you can also run into situations like they can hit you with things like code 14s or code 15s, which are concealed shortages. So basically you could fight them and say, no, Walmart, I sent you a box with 12. And essentially they're going to open it and they can claim, because you have no proof otherwise, they can basically say, well, I opened the box and I only saw 10. So I'm going to short you too. And you have no proof of that. So yeah, I would recommend not master packing. And if it's something that you want to dig into, we're happy to chat to you after a webinar today. Hopefully helpful.
Teresa said that you're right on.
Okay.
So we'll answer a couple more of these questions during the Q&A because we've got a couple. So
okay, perfect. Okay, master packing, bad, scary. But I understand. I fully understand. As Ali mentioned, I used to be on the supplier side. So it's not easy, guys. So I 100% am with you on just how hard it is to be a supplier to Walmart. So if we can help with any insights or anything, we are happy to do that. But yeah, so want to talk about disputing invoices. So as I mentioned with APDP, you can either dispute using a claim or dispute using an invoice. So usually what happens is, if you are getting an entire invoice deduction, usually that is going to happen for like return issues or like a code 25, which is basically Walmart is saying, I received 0 product of what you're saying you shipped me. So I'm going to deduct the invoice in its entirety. So if you can't find a claim record in APIS, what you can do is then essentially create a dispute from an invoice. So this is what APIS looks like. It's very 90s chic. But essentially you can see in this example, invoice number 123456, and you can see this negative number. That means a deduction was taken on the entirety of the invoice. So I'll kind of breeze through this. As Ali mentioned, you guys will get the slides and the recording after this. And I'm only breezing through because the process is fairly similar to the disputing claims section. So I don't want to bore you guys. But basically, you're going to create the dispute button, same location in APDP, top right corner. You're going to select that relevant 6-digit vendor number. And then instead of creating the dispute based on the claim, you're going to do it based on the invoice. And then same thing, either enter the invoice number or that date range, hit the search button, and then you should see a list of supplier invoices that match that particular criteria. And then from there, you can create that particular dispute and go from there. So again, very similar situation. You're going to submit or click on that checkbox and then enter all of the required information. So for this one, it's a little bit less. There's fewer fields that you have to fill out because you're you're disputing the entire invoice. So you don't have to worry too much about freight, ship method, or load number. I would say, obviously, as you guys can imagine with Walmart, the more information you put, the better. It's not going to hurt you. But really what you need to care about is the deduction code, the dispute amount, and again, that description. And again, it can be very, very simple, very similar to the disputing claims section. Hey, we shipped this in full. Here's our BOL. Please repay. Or, hey, the buyer approved this, particular shipping method. Email is attached, and you can keep it as simple as that. So again, very similar to disputing claims. Once you have all of the relevant information and documentation attached, hit the next button. Again, you can still go back and edit the dispute by clicking the previous button. You can save it to go back to it at a later time. And then you can just hit submit if you're ready to send that over. Okay, so wanted to move on to talk about the APDP dispute statuses. So I wanted to call this out just because, again, if you were using direct commerce in the past, they have different names for some of the different statuses now. Pending Walmart is now called Walmart Research in APDP. Pending vendor is now called supplier action. Rejected is now called denied, cancel is still canceled, and approved is still approved. So we're going to walk through what each of these different statuses are. So, kind of way at the top of the list, a draft is kind of what we talked about already. Essentially, it's a dispute that has been started but not completed. You can either submit it or you can cancel it out yourself. Let's say you start a draft and you do some research with your transportation team and you find out, oh, actually, we did short ship on this. Or oops, we really did, accidentally forget to put an allowance on the invoice. You can then choose to cancel that draft out. No harm, no foul to you. As a friendly reminder, unsubmitted drafts are canceled after 14 days. So just remember that so you don't do too much work and then be upset later on. So as we mentioned, kind of after you've submitted everything and you've hit the submit button, it then goes into Walmart research status. So essentially what that means is you have submitted this to Walmart and you are now awaiting some sort of resolution. So again, this is something that I wanted to really, really call out for you guys. This is not editable unless it is sent back as supplier action. So, and I'll tell you guys what supplier action is in a second. But again, you can't go back and be like, oops, I put the wrong load number in, or oops, I attached the incorrect BOL. You basically can't touch this claim once it's in the status, it's in Genpact's queue. Why this is really, really relevant to just know about and keep in mind is because of that time frame for Genpact to review claims. So as I mentioned, on average, it takes them anywhere between about 60 to 75 days. So essentially 2 to 3 months for you to get any sort of resolution. So think about how long your cash flow is tied up. And if you were to submit an incorrect dispute the first time, it's going to be stuck in that status for like 60 to 90 days. And then once you edit it, if you're lucky, they'll get back to it pretty quickly, and then you can get kind of resolution within a week. If you miss that window, you could get sent to the back of the line and basically have to wait another 60 to 90 days for it. So really, really, really try and get as much of this correct and complete as possible. Because again, at the very, very minimum, you're, 2 months out. And sometimes if you're unlucky, you can be 4, 6, 8 months out if they have to send something back for you to edit and review. So just wanted to call that out so that everyone is aware. So from there, after the Genpact team has reviewed the deduction dispute, they can either send it back as denial pending or sent for revision. So here's another really, really important thing to call out for you guys. The dispute must now be updated with a comment or a new file within 7 days, or it will be moved to denied or canceled. So essentially, in this status, Walmart is basically saying, hey, I reviewed your claim, it's something like the BOL isn't matching, or I need additional information. Can you please attach that? And usually you'll see a comment here. So for example, you have provided POD for 9 cases, however, you have billed for 18 cases. So please provide the POD for 18 cases. So at that point, as you can see here, you do now have the edit button, and then you can attach the correct POD. So essentially, if you see denial pending, basically that's Walmart's way of saying like, hey, we don't think that this is valid, but if you can show us some sort of proof that it is, we're willing to take a look and listen to that. And if it's in sent for revision, basically Walmart is saying like, okay, I realize that there was probably an honest mistake here, go ahead and send us the right file and we'll, accept that. And why these two states matter is because basically if you don't touch that particular deduction dispute after 7 days, if it's in denial pending, it'll go to denied and then you burn that one match. And if it's in sent for revision and you don't respond in 7 days, it'll be completely canceled out. You've not burned the match, but now you have to start all the way from like step one. You have to go back everything we talked about previously and basically start fresh. So it's really, really important for you guys to just keep an eye and be logging in. So that's why I said the weekly cadence, because if you're getting anything in supplier action and you're not responding to it in 7 days, you're going to lose, it's either going to get denied or canceled. So you can log in here and basically see if there's anything in supplier action, you should go and address that quickly. And then canceled is kind of what I mentioned earlier. Basically, the supplier failed to prove why the deduction should be repaid. Or you could, again, as I gave an example, hey, after doing research, oops, we actually did submit this incorrectly. You can withdraw the dispute on its own. So the existing dispute is finished. The claim line can be disputed again by creating a new dispute. Denied, as you can imagine, the supplier failed to prove why the deduction should be repaid. So again, maybe the actual POD that you submitted really does show that it was signed short. So you shouldn't have gone paid on that. So the existing dispute is finished. You can dispute again by creating a brand new dispute, but again, keep in mind you only have kind of 3 shots on goal. So really make sure that you have better proof, if you can. So these are the times when you would add that, additional reporting like DSS, inventory receipt reports, ASN reports, packing slips, things like that. Approved, again, kind of what the name suggests. Walmart agrees that the claim line was invalid, so it will be repaid or corrected. So Walmart goes, oh, you're right, our bad. We should not have deducted you on this. We're going to go ahead and pay you in full, or they can also partially pay you. So maybe, again, they were only able to find proof of 5 cases instead of 10 cases. So they'll pay you for those 5 cases, and the other 5 will remain you won't get paid for those. Yeah, so something else that I wanted to call out was something called negative approvals. So this is a fairly new phenomenon for Walmart, although we have started to see this crop up a little more over time. Essentially, you can see here in the approved details, if you look at the approval sequence, you'll see 1 and then 2. And essentially what that means is Walmart can approve a specific deduction and then rededuct it under a different claim code. So you can see here they approved in approval sequence 1 this $4,000 for a code 22, which is a shortage code. And then after they have chosen to re-review, they can go, actually, we feel like this is a concealed shortage, so we are going to go ahead and rededuct, and then you will need to start a brand new claim for this code 15. Now, I will say code 14s and 15s are particularly difficult to fight. We kind of were exploring that scenario with Teresa earlier. A concealed shortage, again, is basically Walmart saying, when I opened the box, you told me there would be 10. I only saw 8. And there is almost no way. And you can see, so like, I think 14 is a concealed shortage in a case, and then 15 is a concealed shortage on a pallet. So kind of same scenario with a pallet, you stack all your cases on a pallet, shrink wrap them. Walmart says, hey, when I undid the shrink wrap on the pallet, again, you told me there would be 20 cases. I only found 18. So for those particular cases, suppliers are typically trying to take pictures of loads that they put into trailers before they send them off. It is awful and an extra step, and it is no fun, but we have found that that tends to be a little bit more effective because you can't really use a POD or a BOL to fight a 14 or a 15, because again, Walmart is saying, sure, I marked it as complete, but when I opened the box, it wasn't true. So you just need to be aware of that. I would say, before putting preventative action like that in place, because it is very, very labor and cost intensive, just make sure you get a handle on what types of codes you're getting, right? So, one thing that we preach a lot at SupplyPike is not only the concept of getting paid, which is of course super important, but making sure you're getting better as well. So really understanding why you're getting those claim codes so that you can prevent them or minimize them from happening in the future. So kind of, slight tangent there, but basically, if you are getting a bunch of code 15s and it is impacting your bottom line, absolutely research what it could look like in order for you to put people in place to take pictures or whatever makes sense for your business. If you're getting, 2, 3 code 15s a year, maybe not worth your time. And, it sucks, but maybe worth it to just say, hey, I'm going to fight as hard as I can, but I'm not going to completely change my SOP to try and get, 2 or 3 codes back. So just something to think about and be aware of as you are looking at your numbers in APDP. So wanted to give you guys just some quick updates around dispute resolution, times, and things like that. So for the purposes of time, I won't read all of this, but I would highly recommend, if you guys aren't already, subscribing to the Supplier Wiki newsletter. If you just go to supplierwiki.com, you should be able to, there's a pop-up and it'll tell you to subscribe. We are always posting announcements from Walmart. And the other retailers we support, Target, Kroger, Amazon, Home Depot, and soon to be CVS. As you can imagine, and I'm sure you guys know, there are a million billion emails that you need to keep track of, and announcements and retail link and all of that good stuff, and they get buried under links. We try to do our best to call these out for you. So a couple of recent updates around tax-only disputes, returns, DSDC and ASN allowances, and bill back allowances. Again, I won't read this for the sake of time, but you will get this deck afterwards so you guys can take a look at it. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Allie and myself, and we'll be happy to point you in the right direction. More information just around supporting documentation requirements. This is updated from APDP. If you're prepaid, for example, you need the facility freight stamp indicating Walmart signed for the merchandise, prepaid drop trailer collect, small parcel shipments, etc. Allie, was there a question?
All right. No, this is question time is here. Next slide is Q&A.
Perfect.
I was just ready.
Okay, awesome.
We've got a good amount of questions, so I want to make sure I'm getting to these. I'm going to start with Sean's. So Sean asked, should a BOL listing multiple POs be highlighted with a marker calling out the PO in dispute when presenting a collect shipment dispute?
I don't think you need to, honestly. If you can, I'm probably like a master BOL scenario. If you can separate that out, that is just going to make it a little bit easier for Genpact to review your claim. But and different people have different opinions. To me, especially if you know it's an invalid claim, I really believe on putting that back on Walmart with love of hey, you've taken my money incorrectly. I'm going to provide you the documentation. It's on you to basically prove me wrong, right? So I would say, if again, your mileage may vary. If you have time, if you have capacity, if you have resources, sure. The more you can make it easier for Walmart, the faster they'll review your claim, so on and so forth. But I would say don't do something that's going to don't add a head count to do this, because this is Walmart's responsibility, frankly, to review. The only thing that I would kind of throw out there as just a caveat to think about is, I mentioned Genpact's backlog is very, very large and very, very long. So one thing we have been seeing a little bit is false negatives, right? Where Genpact is just I don't have time. I have a giant backlog that I need to review. I'm just going to deny it because that's faster for me. So you may want to check into any of those types of denials. So again, if you have capacity, if you have resources, and the ability to do it and make it easier, sure, that, could potentially make it easier for Genpact to approve. If not, I wouldn't kind of bend over backwards for them personally.
That makes sense. I agree. A couple more questions we have. Another from Sean. Here's a comment that he's seeing quite a lot lately. So it sounds like the comment is seal intact upon arrival, shortage noted. We have and then this is just additional context. We've submitted earlier PODs for all 3 cases delivered by FedEx, PO, ASN invoice. Thoughts on next steps, Stacy?
That sounds like a concealed shortage, which is crazy to me that they would say seal. Okay, so essentially kind of what Walmart is trying to do in that particular scenario is it sounds like they're trying to push the responsibility on the carrier, and they probably want you to try and file a carrier claim. So Walmart is saying like, hey, the seal is intact, like we broke the seal, so it's not us, we didn't steal anything. But it's a concealed shortage, but when we opened the trailer, there were cases missing. So I would say, Sean, if you know if those are code 14s or code 15s, it sounds like a concealed shortage issue. Again, harder to win back unless you have some sort of proof. I've literally worked with suppliers that will literally send like video recordings or screenshots from the warehouse of them loading trailers to show, that, hey, we shipped this in full. If not, I would say that's something that sometimes you mentioned FedEx, carriers have a little bit more juice with Walmart. So if you try and file a carrier claim, basically to say Walmart is saying this, so FedEx, like, you need to help me figure this out. Walmart or FedEx may be incentivized, depending on the size of the claim, to then go to Walmart and say, this is a little ridiculous. Like, that's not true. So I don't want to give too much prescriptive information just because, I don't have enough context. But yeah, I would start with like checking what type of code it is and then seeing if you have any like picture documentation, and then working with your carrier on that to see if they can provide any information on that. Because if it is a seal intact and it is going through FedEx, you might have a BOL, that basically FedEx is saying that, hey, we do, hey, we have taken full ownership of the complete cases. You may try and use that with Walmart to say like, hey, FedEx received all of our cases in full, sealed the trailer, and then got it to you. So something you might want to try exploring.
Okay. Helpful. Interesting that today we've had a lot of concealed shortage conversations. Maybe that's a trend.
Oh, so bad. Bad
I
trend.
know. Another trend I want. Another question from Teresa. I know that it's 2 p.m., so if people have to hop, totally understand. We'll answer this one and then we will just get back to other questions, and we'll send our emails. So send us your questions here in a second. Teresa asked about the best way to deal with issues with Walmart's receiving errors. So data will show that one item on the PO was received over and others are short.
Yeah.
Talk to that, Stacy.
The beautiful overage shortage discussion. Somehow you're liable for the shortage, but also like they don't want to pay for the overage, because that's fun how that works. So what Teresa describes, we see that a lot. Just working with the suppliers that we have, as she mentioned, it's very common. Let's say you ship, 5 units of item A, 5 units of item B. There's some kid in the warehouse scanning product in at 2 a.m. and he goes 6 of item A and 4 of item B. And now you've got a shortage on item B and an overage on item A. So what I would recommend doing for those particular scenarios is you want to kind of see if you can. So I'm very familiar with DSS. Candidly, I'm not the most familiar with Luminate. So if there are any Luminate experts out there, please feel free to hop in. But in DSS, you are able to pull PO level, like PO item level receiving information. And what I've done for those scenarios is I would recommend always fighting the shortage, because you should do that. And if there are any situations where there are legitimate overages, so you can pull, basically, you kind of make the PO your main data point, and then look at the lines and then what was ordered and what was received against them. And if you have any legitimate overages, you can actually invoice Walmart for those overages. So essentially what you'll do is you'll re-invoice on that same PO. You'll add like a -1 to make it different, and basically show them, like, you will need to be able to show that, hey, we do see a legitimate overage, But essentially from there, you should be able to get paid back on that. Definitely not trying to supply Pike's horn by any means, but we have a module that we have that just trying to show that, that we have reporting that we're able to then send to our suppliers who invoice Walmart. And usually we will see anywhere between like a 70 to 90% payback rate. And the nice part is that they will also pay you back based on your actual payment terms and not like the typical dispute resolution terms. So rather than waiting the 2 to 3 months, let's just say you have like net 30 terms. If you invoice Walmart on the overages, you can get paid within those 30 days. So that's pretty nice. I would say a lot of suppliers are actually not looking at overages right now. So good looking out, Teresa. That is definitely something you want to keep an eye on. And Allie, I think we have an overages webinar that we just did recently.
Already sent it in the chat.
So yes, great questions. The TLDR is you can dispute on the shortages and then you can invoice on the overages. So making sure you're kind of like plugging all of the holes. Rev losses. They're so creative at Walmart on how they do that.
Yes. Yep. Sent that in the chat. We'll give you some technical information on how you can actually go dispute that. I know I said that was the last question. I do want to answer one more, Stacy, if you're willing to answer it. I think it's pretty quick, and then we will wrap up today's conversation. But Bobby asks about APIS. Is there any easy way of mass downloading the transactional details versus those hundreds of remittance Excel files?
Oh, Bobby. I wish there was. I really do. Unfortunately not, which is awful. That is kind of what suppliers are having to do today manually, is going in and kind of every check you have to click into and then get the information. Now, DSS, while you can still get it, DSS does have a 90-day paid detail report that you can pull, and that'll give you the last 90 days, but that is as far back as it will go. I've seen questions to the Walmart team on like whether they'll be including that in Luminate. I have not heard anything about that. So yeah, you can go back as far, you can go 90 days back with DSS, but anything beyond that, you will have to go one by one on APIS. Yeah, and kind of obviously a slightly shameless plug for SupplyPike and other providers in the space. That is something that we help with, is the automation of essentially pulling all of that data down for you in one export, one application, and we actually will automatically submit claims for you. So we have tie-ins to over 120 different carriers and 3PL, so we can automatically pull all the proof information. We'll pull your, check lines, claims, invoices out of APIS, automatically attach the relevant documents, and then send that off for you in APDP. So you never have to look at it if you don't want to. Just saying.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you called that out, Stacy. I was even looking in Luminate just to see if there was some of the payment details and the aliases, and I'm not seeing those listed, so it may not be available, but let us know if you are aware of that report and that you can pull that in Luminate. But thank you all for joining today's webinar. These are our emails. If I didn't get to your question, please email us. We'd love to help you and address any questions that you have on APDP, on Walmart, or really anything when it comes to revenue loss. And Stacy did talk a little bit about our solution. So if you are interested, I'd go to supplypike.com. You can kind of browse what we have to offer, and you can also schedule a demo and a free analysis that we can put your data in from retailing, kind of see where your business is at. So that's interesting. Check that out. But if this is where we'll say goodbye. So thank you all for joining, and we hope to see you at another webinar.